everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another falconry video. Today's video is going to be the first time on this channel that I'm doing a book review. Never done that before. Let me know in the comments if you like me doing these. I have a lot of other books lined up I would like to review and promote as well. Before we do, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. It really does help me keep this channel up and going. And if I seem a little off today, I had a minor jaw surgery, and so if I'm like kind of all poofed up or my voice sounds weird, that is why. So why am I doing a video on a day when I'm kind of a little out of it? Because today I actually had enough time to breathe and got the chance to finish a book that I've been reading. It was short, it was sweet, it was perfect, and I'm like, hey, I've got the time to record this, so might as well do it. The book we're doing today is about ospreys. How strange. It's a beautiful book by Kennon McKlendon. It's a wonderful book called Ospreys in Falconry, Lessons Learned. Now, Kennon has done a great job in this, and I really appreciate his approach to it. I'll get into that in a minute, but first of all, ospreys. What are they? Are they used in falconry? Not really. He's really pioneering this, and again, that's why I want to promote this. One of the problems, though, I'm so used to teaching, I had recorded a whole version of this where I basically taught the book, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's not a book review. He's done all this personal research. So I want to give more of a review, not give away all his content, and please go out and purchase this book. I've looked online. There's many places to purchase. I've included a link in the description where you can buy a copy. There are many other places as well, but that's where I got mine, and I highly recommend it. So ospreys first in general, and why would I care about them? Have I flown ospreys? No, I have not. I have worked with them every few years. I get a chance to work with one in rehabilitation, which has been an interesting experience. And they are amazing fish hunting raptors. They're gorgeous. They're purpose-built as the world's perfect fish hunting raptor. You will never find a more perfect bird raptor for hunting fish. Now, I live in the United States, where our national bird is the bald eagle, which is a fish eagle, a fishing eagle that hunts fish primarily, but they also scavenge and they also hunt other prey, including birds, you know, from ducks to red-winged blackbirds, and will even, you know, hunt rabbits. You don't have ospreys doing that. And what I've seen over the years is in my country, people will project the abilities and hunting style of an osprey onto a bald eagle. I can't tell you how many people will tell me this story. I was out fishing and we saw this bald eagle and it flew down and it dove in the water and then it popped its head up and it looked around and it took off and it had this fish in its feet and it flew off. And I'm like, sure. Then they pull up their video on their phone. Look at this. And you see a bald eagle, skim and catch a fish off the surface. Bald eagles are not meant to dive into the water. They can, they do at times. They're not built for it. A bald eagle has oversized secondaries and they're built to slow down as much as possible without dropping and picking up the payload of a fish close to the surface without falling in and keep going. Almost every time you see a bald eagle dive in the water for a fish, it'll like row itself to the side. An osprey will do that too if the fish is too big, but an osprey can dive into the water, be at a dead standstill, and come out and fly. The reason why is interesting, because the reason why, in my mind, makes them amazing hunters and is one of the reasons why they're not the best for falconry. I promise we're going to get to the book review in a second, but I wanted to show you something, because when we're talking about wingspans, birders, bird watchers and biologists will say, here's the wingspan of the bird, and they'll, you know, maybe a bird bander will pull out the wing and it looks straight out. It's not straight, okay? You might not know this. Birds now when I say wing, I'm talking skin, bone, and muscle. Humerus, ulna, radius, wrist, and these three fingers, of which these two are joined together by a little calcium, okay? They have the same bones we have, okay? Birds cannot do this. They're incapable of it. But Ben, I've seen pictures where people are holding them and they have the wing straight up. No. When I say wing, remember, skin, bone, and muscle, I'm not talking about tendons, I'm not talking about feathers. So birds, when their wings are straight out, are actually like this with the elbow down here. There is a tendon that goes from the elbow to the wrist. It's stretchy like a rubber band and has skin over it, okay? But a bird cannot put its wings straight out. This is straight out, and there would be a straight line here. That's the first thing you need to know. Second thing, I don't consider the feathers the wing. They are the wing, but what I want to know when I say how big is a bird's wing? Not what is the wingspan, but how big is a bird's wing? I'm talking about this stuff, not the feathers. So some birds, like a bald eagles, their wingspan is huge, but their actual wings are not disproportionate for their body, just regular sized. They have ridiculously long secondary feathers that allow them to go slow and scoop over the water, and long primaries. Ospreys wingspans approach that of a bald eagle as far as the wingspan, but the actual size of the wing is by proportionately larger compared to its body than that of a bald eagle. So how do I help you visualize this? Here's a quick little video of a cast of a California condor skeleton sitting on my couch. And take a look at this. When you're looking at the bottom, now a condor isn't an osprey or a bald eagle, but I don't have casts of skeletons of those, so deal with it. But take a look at this. You've got this bird, and you've got, when you were looking at the wing, you've got the humerus, then you've got the ulna and the radius, and then you've got the rest of the bones right there, the digits, the wrist bones, you got all that. And then the primary wing feathers come off of that. The ulna and the radius that we're looking at here on ospreys are ridiculously oversized. And that is one of the biggest problems, a problem addressed as far as housing and husbandry by Kennon in his book, is oversized ulnas on young birds especially, or birds, ospreys in captivity, are lurpy, gangly, they cause problems, they're easy to stumble over. And that's why it's interesting. You look at an osprey nest, it's a big platform. They don't like to be in trees. And Kennon nails that in his book. So I think that's one of the problems that you have, is that ospreys are not meant to... But what I love about this book, first, what's in it? Kennon has worked with ospreys because he loves them, and he jumps into it. He's got different sections. He's got a good intro that addresses a lot of stuff. I'll get to it in a second. He's got, then section 1 is the cautious raptor. Section 2 is going over the 3 ospreys he documents that he has worked with. And then section on keeping ospreys, like what are the training techniques that have worked well for him, the housing, the husbandry, the transportation, hoods or not hoods, all of that. And then the equipment itself, what equipment he recommends. And then he ends up with some interesting falconry stories with a few birds, and then also at the end, the story of Neptune, which is a much earlier account, like I think the 1930s, by Hugo Richter, that up until Kennon really was our primary source for kind of information on working with ospreys, which was next to nothing. So I love his introduction. Please read it, especially naysayers who are like, you can't work with an osprey, blah, 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 blah. Read this introduction. I felt a very close kinship in the attitude of falconry towards Kennon. The entire book, especially this introduction, he acknowledges the complaints and the reasons not to fly. He defines why he flies them, why he has a passion for them. He defines other areas of other birds that might seem equally hypocritical if you look at them properly. And he does the entire thing respectfully, honorably, and with a passion for the birds and for learning. The entire book, nothing of this is like, I am the authoritative person, blah, blah, blah. He is. Kennon is, from this book and how he's done it, he is the authoritative person on trying to use an osprey for falconry. And he acknowledges all the complaints and issues and tries to work with them. But he doesn't come across that way at all. It's just, I love these birds. I want to try them. Let's pioneer new species. And I love that attitude. And I love that he wrote this book because we need more of this. There's some species that I've had a lot of people rip on me for that I've had success with. Northern harriers, which I've done a video on, rough-legged hawks, and hopefully in the near future I'll be doing a common black hawk, which as far as I know nobody in the United States has ever done. I want to see what they're capable of. And just like with this book, a person might be like, well, they're not as good as other birds. I'm sure they're not. So what? Everybody here knows how much I love lanner falcons, even though I say peregrines are better birds. I want to see what lanners are capable of, so I love to fly them. So I love that attitude in the book. It's respectful, and it's all about learning and having experience and trying to figure out the mindset. So in his first section, the cautious raptor, I love the way he is trying to understand the mentality of the bird instead of trying to force a preconception or force a previous known falconry style onto the species. And like I made a big list of things I wanted to do, but again, I want you to go out and buy the book yourself and read it. But I will say one thing that I loved, that I'm like, oh, Kennon's got it. He's looking, he's understanding. He describes them as cautious, slow motion accipiters. And I'm like, what a fascinating concept. Anybody who's flown accipiters are the forest hawks, the true hawks, like a goshawk or a Cooper's hawk. They're edgy. And he's like, they're like that in slow motion. They're very surprisingly cautious and contemplative, and everything they're going to do, they're thinking things through several times before they do it, which I think is really a fascinating insight. There's so much more than just that little blurb, so please buy the book and read it yourself. But yeah, oh my goodness, I'm just like, this is what we need. It's people trying to understand the bird from their perspective, and all of his views about that first section, the cautious raptor, could only be written by a falconer. Maybe an experienced rehabber or educator, possibly too. But just a straight up biologist wouldn't. Somebody who is training and working with and flying and free flying a raptor has a very unique perspective. And so to have that idea of like, they hunt and train like a cautious, slow motion accipiter, I'm like, God, that's brilliant. So that sort of thinking permeates the entire book. The next section, the birds. He lists 3 different ospreys, Oscar, Opie, and Ozzy, 3 different ospreys that he flew and trained successfully, and their experiences, the heartache, the joy, and each section he goes through and says, after things, went down, like, what did I learn? What do I want to change? He troubleshoots and figures things through and lists, okay, now we know this. Now, so it's a constant learning process. It's not just, I want an osprey. It's not that. It's like, okay, how do we do this right? How do we pioneer this species? Even if potentially the species might never be some mainstream bird, his goal is not to convert you to flying ospreys. It's like, hey, here's a species I love, I want to try out. I am troubleshooting, I am learning, I am documenting for the good of all of us, which I love. The next section, he goes up into keeping ospreys, where he talks about the husbandry, and he talks about, the delicate nature of their tail feathers. Again, like an accipiter, how easily breakable the tail feathers are. How do you work around that? What kind of perching do you use? What kind of emu do you use, and why? Which, geez, that's like priceless. Even if you're just a rehabber or a wildlife educator or a zoo and you're going to have an osprey, even if you're not going to be out flying it, you ought to just for that get this book so you can understand not only what he recommends, but the logic behind it. Okay, so I love all of that, troubleshooting, what he does with equipment and travel, transportation, purchase, how different ways when he would go out hunting with them, different perching styles, and what they would do. Absolutely loved it. The equipment, of course, very valuable and interesting to see his approach to it. And interesting that he says they, as far as jesses or tethering, how they are, I was amazed at how much they're like, of all the birds he's ever worked with, they're more than any other birds. So we got in the habit of like removable jesses of different types to take off, and thought that was a really fascinating approach as well. The aggression, I always assumed ospreys in falconry at weight would be really aggressive and weird. They're not. He said they're more prone to nip than to foot you, which I thought, oh, that's neat. That's really cool. So then at the end, he goes into, again, interesting falconry stories with a few birds and ends with that, just for historic purposes, the story of the osprey named Neptune by Hugo Richter, which is a very good one as well. Good short read there at the end. The only thing I wish we had more of in this book, and this is his first time doing this book, I wish there were more pictures. It's a short read, as well it would be. It's not the end-all authoritative. He's still learning. He's still experimenting. He's still finding input, and probably still flying more ospreys to this day. So this is great. I just love that it's just a raw, honest, it's just like, hey, how you doing? I want to write this book, and I want to share what I found out. You can love it, you can hate it, you can go out and get an osprey and write your own book. I'm just sharing what I've learned. Hope it helps you. and maybe you might even fly, a few of you might fly an Osprey. I love it. It's like just like talking to a friend. It's great. So love the book. I hope he comes up with another edition. If he does, knowing now that he has written a book, I hope he ever does a second edition with updated information. Being a visual learner, the more photos and diagrams, the better. But other than that, please support this book. Please give him a shout out. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of having a book review. If you would like me to go in a bit more detail of the content of the book, or if you'd like me to give my honest review like this and just encourage you to get it if I recommend it. Let me know your comments. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And as always, happy hawking.